Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com, and today I'm going to be going over another bluff. I believe the last 2 or 3 of these videos I've done have been fun bluffs, so why not do another one? This is from a European Poker Tour event. A 50-year-old tight aggressive European guy raises to 525, and I like to call on the button with Jack 10 of hearts with a 125 big blind stack, 25,000 chips. I think this is perfectly standard. I would do this most of the time. I think Jack 10 suited is probably a little bit too good to 3-bet, but whenever you are deep stack, there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting out of line and 3-betting these hands, especially in position. So either call or 3-bet, both plays are perfectly acceptable. You really don't want to 3-bet and get 4-bet. That's the only real fear. And if you think your opponent's legitimately tight aggressive, they may just have primarily premium hands, and then that will result in you getting 4-bet, or you're getting called when you are severely dominated. Flop comes 8-4-2, 2 hearts. I have the Jack 10 of hearts, so this is a great flop. My opponent bets 600. This is a situation where I'm going to call pretty much every time. You have to realize that if I raise, what kind of range should I be raising for value? And the answer is just sets, aces, which I probably wouldn't have anyway. So if your flop raising range is incredibly small, you typically want to call instead. And this is a very good spot to call, a much better spot to call compared to one of the previous videos I made for Poker News where I had 10-8 of clubs on Queen 7-4. This is a much better spot to call because now the 9 gives me a very good straight draw. Jack or 10 give me top pair, and hearts give me a good draw. So this is a great spot to call. Much, much, much better than the previous spot. If you haven't watched all my videos I've made for Poker News, feel free to check them out. I also have a YouTube channel where all these videos are posted as well, so you can see all of them. Turns a 6 of hearts, and interestingly enough, my opponent continues betting. This is a turn that I would expect him to check a lot of the time. Not necessarily because he's concerned with being beat, but if he bets and I have a marginal hand like a 4 or a 2 or a medium pair or ace high, I'm going to fold a lot of the time. And if he's betting, it kind of implies he's trying to get value. So I don't really know what to make of this. This may be a spot where my opponent's just betting all of his good hands for value and not betting his junky hands. Or maybe he's betting with everything because he thinks that I have a lot of marginal stuff here. Either way, we're certainly sticking around with the flush draw. We just have to figure out, should I call or should I raise? And this time I decided to raise and apply the pressure. He made it 1,200. I decided to make it 3,000. I think this is quite a strong play. It's going to be difficult enough to defend against. And if he's sitting here with a hand like aces, they've shriveled up to a bluff catcher. If he has worse than an 8, he's probably going to fold. Although he may stick around with a hand like 7s, 5s, or 3s. Although he may not bet those in the first place. So given my opponent's turn betting range, if he does call, he probably has an overpair. And if he folds, obviously, that's great for me. Of course, we have plenty of equity on the river, so we can get there easily. Actually, bet 1,300 on the turn, sorry. River's an 8. Interesting river. Do we think a tight, aggressive European guy is raising with very many 8s at all from the hijack seat? I would venture to say no. He may not even open 8-7 or 9-8 for all I know. So for that reason, this card should be much better for me, even though in reality, am I really raising the turn with an 8? I would say definitely not. I would probably raise the turn with a set though. So when he checks on the river, do I think he's going to call a bet with an overpair? Well, if he has a reasonable overpair, he's probably going to call any reasonable bets, perhaps 8,000 or lower. And given he did call my turn raise, he probably has some sort of a pair or a pair with a gut shot like pocket 7s. He may even call a 6,000 bet with pocket 7s. So for that reason, I think a small bet is pretty much out of the question because the range we are trying to make fold are the overpairs. It's always important to try to figure out what are you trying to make your opponent fold. In one of the previous videos, again, for Poker News, I had 5 high on the river, 5-4 of hearts, and I bet small because I was trying to make a bunch of marginal hands fold. This time, we're trying to make a lot of really good hands fold. So my opponent's never going to fold a really good hand to a small bet, so small bet's out. Same thing for a medium bet. If I bet in the spot, I think I need to bet quite large. Probably the size of the pot or more. So now I have to ask, if I go all in, my bluff needs to work about 66% of the time. The way you figure that out is you take your bluff size, which is 20,000, and divide it by, actually the bet size is 16,000. You take 16,000, because that's all our opponent has, and then you divide 16,000 by your 16 plus the 8. So 16 divided by 24 is roughly 2/3 of the time. So will an all-in bet work 2/3 of the time? And it's tough to say. I mean, whenever you are trying to make your opponent fold an overpair, you got to have a pretty good read that they're going to fold, because a lot of players will just sort of blindly look down at their pocket nines and say, well, I have an overpair, I call. Some people view overbets as always bluffs. Some people view them as always strong. And in this scenario, in reality, I probably am always bluffing this particular player, but he doesn't know that. If I was against a good player, I would certainly play my nuts this way. I would go all in against a good player. But against this particular player, I'd probably actually bet something like 7,000 with my nut hands and all in on my bluffs. So we are playing a very exploitable strategy versus this particular opponent. Anyway, I do think right here, going all in is going to be the best play, and that's because a lot of players really don't want to go broke. They hate going broke in tournaments, and they really hate calling off a 2x pot river bets and being shown the nuts. Nothing's worse than that in a lot of people's minds. So I do think going all in will have much more fold equity than betting something like 12,000 even, because people do value their tournament life. And if you can risk that tournament life for them, they'll find folds. So hopefully I do shove here. And I do shove. And my opponent folds. Good result. I don't know what he had. I really wish he would have shown a hand like pocket jacks and folded. That would have been quite sweet. But it's very important to recognize that in this hand, we are targeting a strong range. And when you're trying to get a strong range to fold, you generally have to pull out the big bets. And this is a spot where I very easily could have the nuts. My opponent almost certainly does not have a full house. So for that reason, this bluff has a pretty good amount of merits. That's going to be it for this video. I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you all were not watching these videos, I would not be making them. So thanks for that. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Little. Also, let the people at Poker News know if you like these videos. And if you don't like them, go watch something else. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you next week.